Good morning, everyone. Just Chad, give me a chat. I just want to double check. We had a few incidents yesterday, and I just want to double check that our sound is working. So just give me a couple of minutes. Not even that, hopefully. And it is working. Thank God. Okay. I'll keep an eye on it because yesterday I discovered a couple of things. One, that my software is not so great. And number two, that when on my chat, when I get messages, if someone types a message in on X, I don't get that. I only get the YouTube messages, so which I was unaware of. And yesterday morning, I spent the first 20 minutes or 15 minutes, doing a monologue with no sound and no one could hear it. So that was an annoying waste of my time. It hasn't been a good week this week. I've had a few tech issues I've had to deal with. I got on late yesterday about, I think it was 1 o'clock or something like that, because of work commitments I had. So, and that was all to do with tech issues. And then we had a few more tech issues. So, while we live in these modern times of AI and the internet and high tech and all that, it can be really annoying at the same time. So here we are on a Friday morning. Not much to show you out my window on the weather because we had a bit of rain. Thank God, I've been calling for that for a little bit last night. And I've got a lot of dew and water on my windows. You can't see the bay properly, but we'll give you a good look. We'll see how we go. We might be able to get a bit of a view from up top. As you can see through the window, I've got drops on there. Overcast, not raining, not blowy. Port Phillip Bay is pretty calm. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting day. There's a bit of blue up there, so it might clear up. Yesterday, we had a bit of rain yesterday afternoon and in the evening, which was a good thing. So, anyway, welcome to the Eureka Conservative Daily Podcast for the last time for the week. Before I take my weekend off, I've got me and my co-star down here at my feet, JJ, and he's in a funny old mood. So we never know what he might pull off. So if I'm running up and down these stairs at some stage, you'll know what it's about. It's about him. Got to keep my co-star happy. Time for the Bible read. All right. and then we'll get into it. I'll probably repeat a bit of the rant, which is annoying because it was a good rant yesterday, but didn't go to air. We'll make up for it today. Oh, here we go. 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13, warning against idols. Paul takes his reader back to the days of Moses. The people sinned and were punished, but God has promised resources to keep us faithful. I want you to remember, my brothers, what happened to our ancestors who followed Moses. They were all under the protection of the cloud and all passed safely through the Red Sea. In the cloud and in the sea, they were all baptized as followers of Moses. All ate the same spiritual bread and drank the same spiritual drink. They drank from the spiritual rock that went with them, and that rock was Christ himself. But even then, God was not pleased with most of them. I doubt he'd be pleased with most of us at the moment. And so their dead bodies were scattered over the desert. Now, all this is an example for us to warn us not to desire evil things, as they did, nor to worship idols, as some of them did. As the scriptures say, the people sat down to a feast, which turned into an orgy of drinking and sex. Sounds like a football club we've just been talking about all week. We must not be guilty of sexual immorality, as some of them were. And in one day, 23,000 of them, 23,000 of them fell dead. We must not put the Lord to the test, as some of them did, and they were killed by snakes. We must not complain, as some of them did, and they were destroyed by the angel of death. All these things happened to them as examples for others, and they were written down as a warning for us. For we live at a time when the end is about to come. Whoever thinks he is standing firm had better be careful that he does not fall. Every test that you have experienced is the kind that normally comes to people. But God keeps his promise, and he will not allow you to be tested beyond your power to remain firm. At the time you are put to the test, he will give you the strength to endure it and to provide you with a way out. I found that to be very true. I think I talked about this yesterday or the day before. I can't remember now. I'm so confused. That's such an appropriate passage. I mean, when you consider what everyone's been talking about, for those who follow the Sydney saga, sexual immorality, false idols in footballers, those checking themselves to make sure they're standing firm. There's a lot of judging going on around that Sydney Swan saga from people who probably have no right to judge someone else, which is what I talked about. There's a lot of victimhood stuff going on. Look, we all understand the concept that you need to respect and protect women, but men also need that too, you know. I mean, it's all one-way traffic on that issue, and we got a case in America where it's going again. A woman who killed her 3 children, strangled them to death one at a time, and now all the feminists are out in the court giving her the love signs. Can't even do it. What's that? Is that the love sign? Hundreds of them supporting a woman who killed 3 children, strangled them to death. Now, she was going through sounds like some issues, which will come out in the court. But why would you be protesting the innocence of someone you don't know about circumstances you don't know, and automatically finding that they're trying to portray the husband as the one who did it? Yet all the evidence is pointing towards the mother. I mean, she obviously physically did it. She's admitted to it. So the husband didn't kill him, but they're trying to blame. So the feminists are online trying to blame it. We're going through the same thing now. There's this pile on of these Sydney Swan footballers. Yes, they did the wrong thing. Yes, they should face some sort of penalty. Should they be facing this enormous pile-on that is going to destroy lives? Over what? They went out, they had a good time, and they hired some escorts, hookers. I don't know what it was, but they were women who were adult women, consenting adult women who sell their bodies to satisfy the sexual desires of men. That's what they do. And yet they've been portrayed as these victims because we still don't know the exact details of what happened. So I don't know how people can jump on their high horse and start saying, you know, men have got to respect women more and these women were victims and all that. Victims of what? Does anyone know what they were victims of? Does anyone know whether these women themselves were using the cocaine to a highest cost? We don't know anything. And we probably won't know anything until there's a court case and it goes to court, which will probably never ever happen, because what will happen is they'll get paid out. And is that what they did this for in the first place? I mean, the boys were stupid, and they were stupid to put themselves in that position. But to try and portray these women who as innocents, who are out to 4, 5, 7 in the morning selling their bodies to satisfy men's sexual desires, is not necessarily, there's just not the ring of truth around it. There's a lot of blame here to go around, but the worst part is, and this is what my rant was about yesterday. I'm just going to double check I'm still working, guys. Hold on. I'm a bit nervous after yesterday. There we go. I am still working. There's a lot of nonsense coming, especially from AFL women, especially from media celebrities, going on about victimhood, and we should be all thinking of the victims and that. That's fine. Give me a victim. I don't know who the victim is. I tell you who I think. I tell you who I see as a bit of a victim at the moment is the 5 young men, because this is over the top pile-on. It's over the top. Did they do something stupid? Yes. Should they be drawn and quartered for it? No. A game suspension, a bit of a fine, pull them in a year. There's a lot more to come out about this. There was no curfew. So there's no curfew. Well, you can take away the getting back to the hotel room late, but apparently that's what they've been suspended for the rest of the year. So, you know, the apparently the playing group is pissed off with these 5 players. Are they pissed off with their coach, who also went out and took his staff out? Where was the supervision of these players? When young men get out in a city and then they're in a motel room and they're being given, hey, boys, you can go out and have a few beers, young men are going to take that and run with it, and these 5 did. It doesn't make them terrorists, murderers, rapists, thieves, anything like that. They're just dumb boys who did stupid things. And none of it at the moment, except maybe cocaine use, is illegal. It wasn't illegal to get home early in the morning. It wasn't illegal to go out for drinks. It's not even illegal to book in sexual workers. It's not illegal. They can do all of that. So what are they getting penalised for? Breaking the culture. What culture? Their coaches went out and had a few drinks as well. They got back late as well. So is this a whole club thing? Is this a whole AFL-wide thing? It's not like there hasn't been issues on the AFLW side. We'll show you that in a minute. It's not like there's not issues throughout other clubs. If you're a supporter of another club and you're sneering down on your nose at this, and the bizarre thing, I'm not a Sydney Swans supporter. You know, I'm coming out and defending these guys daily. I'm a Richmond supporter, but Richmond don't have clean hands. No, none of the AFL clubs do. What do you think? There's 600 odd men, virile men, in the prime of their lives. They go to the gym every day. They run. They've got physically attractive bodies to the opposite sex. They're good-looking young men, and you don't think they're going to enjoy that while they can? Let me go back to being 21 and being in their position. I would love life again. I envy that. Good on them. They're enjoying life. Should they have done what they did? No, they shouldn't. But should they be enjoying life? Yes, they should. Because as anyone my age knows, that time of their life goes very quickly. It's over before you know it. One day you're 21 and the world's your oyster. Next day you're 35 and you wonder what happened. And then for the rest of your life, you go, I wish I could get back to those days. So now they've had their lives ruined. Apparently Heaney's had his fiancée walk out on him. So he's in a happy point of his life, about to be married. No, that's his own stupid fault. But, you know, have a little bit of empathy for these men. They've done no worse than so many others in society have done, but they've been made out to be pariahs. I mean, you think about what else goes in society on through OnlyFans. That silly woman that tries to sleep with 1,000 men in a night, and she's held up as a hero. As I said yesterday, if people could hear it, our media shoved down our throats promiscuous shows like Married at First Sight, Love Island, Big Brother. you get them all over the time, and they're on our screens all the time. As promiscuous as you get, what do they think, these young men? These young men have grown up with that. Those shows have been on the air for 10 years. So when they were 16, they were getting fed this. So, I don't know why everyone's acting surprised. Apparently, there's so many rumors going around. And all the rumors, I still can't figure out. The worst one I've heard is, so far, is they made the girls put cocaine on their stomachs so the guys could snort it off, or vice versa. I don't know. But again, how many times do you see that in a film, a TV series? If you don't want these young men to behave like this, don't mentor them and give them this environment to grow up in. Pretty easy. But here we are over in America, and a woman kills 3 kids, and they're all out. She's a victim. When is a woman not a victim? Even when she kills kids, she's the victim. When she has an abortion, she's the victim. When she gets pregnant, she's the victim. She was a consenting adult. She's not a victim. These men, they're not victims. They've done stupid things, but the pile-on makes them a victim. The women are getting all the sympathy on the world. Don't be surprised to see them milk this. So I'm sort of leaning the other way. Have these men been set up? And don't think a woman can't be every bit as nefarious and vindictive as a man. I've been the victim of that 2 or 3 times. Guarantee you, they can be worse than the men. And they're more scheming. And to be fair, I've worked with some amazing women. Amazing. So we've just got to stop judging each other by your gender. Judge them by who you are, whether you're a man or a woman. There's one thing that Daisy Pearce yesterday said, be a good person. I agree with her on that. But then she went on to paint like all men as arseholes. You don't know these 5 men. You don't know what they've done in their life. You don't know whether they're good or bad people. So Daisy shouldn't be jumping up and just saying they're bad. They invited escorts up to their room. That goes on all the time. Sorry, if you want to live in pretend land to say it doesn't. And the fact that we've got politicians moralising about them is an absolute joke. So I did say yesterday in my silence that yesterday was going to be the last day I spoke about that, but then I muted myself somehow. So I'm just going to go on to X. I want to show you because I think this was in the silent part. So I do want to get this out because I think it's important. What have I done there? There we go. I think that's it. See if I don't get up. Yes, it is. So I want to go through the bookmarks a bit because there's a few examples of the victimhood going on right now. Now, remember, every single person in this room was a consenting adult. So if you want to believe the media narrative and lines, and the media have jumped the gun on this in a big way, go ahead. I'm not, I'm in the wrong part. I'm not going for that at all. At all. If you want to do, feel free. Be an adult and think for yourself. That's what you need to be doing. So, we've got a few to get through, so I do want to get through this quickly. Got a few dog videos, as you can see. A lot of dog videos. Oh, my God, I got a bit more than I thought. Here we go. Here we go. I just want you to listen to a few clips. This is a politician. She is a bitch. Tanya Plibersek. Listen to this.
Now been charged with these 2 other players over their conduct, and yet in the case of Luke Gosling, your colleague, he's a special envoy in the government, he's now been charged with these 2 counts of assault on the chief administrator. The AFL didn't wait for charges to act. The Prime Minister didn't stand aside Luke Gosling. Is that still tenable?
Look, I'm not going to comment. I didn't on the specific allegations against the footballers. I've made general comments about.
So this guy's actually been charged with an actual crime, and he's still sitting in the government, hasn't been stood down, and you've got politicians moralising about on all sides about their behaviour, even though they have not been charged. Listen to what she's got to say.
About what institutions need to do to show that they're taking issues seriously.
Yeah. Another matter that comes to mind here when we talk about the role of language in a conversation about domestic violence and violence against women, that we need men to speak up if this is happening. If they hear this in a conversation, they should say something. The Prime Minister's podcast appearance seems like something that won't go away here. We take him at his word, he wasn't meaning rude gestures. But in that scenario where the female comedian was making gestures about the Japanese Prime Minister's breasts, should he have called that out in that moment? Is that something we need to call out? We can't let that go by either.
Yeah, but hold on. And this is where I disagree with the female reporter. I mean, it was a female comedian that raised it. I mean, this is the nonsense I'm finding from the female side. Sorry, ladies who watch this. But it was a female comedian that raised it, and they expect the men to be pushing back all the time. Why did the female raise it if it's such in poor taste? She hasn't had any pushback. She's still on the air. She's still doing her job. You know, this is where the whole gender thing is just becoming a nonsense.
I think people can understand the difference between allegations of sexual assault and a podcast.
Really? I mean, one, we don't know what the allegations have been, so we don't know whether if it's snorting cocaine off somebody's, requesting them to snort cocaine off their waist or stomach. I'm not too sure how that manufactures itself in a sexual assault. We don't know the charges. We don't know the details. And here is another silly politician of all people trying to allege sexual assault when they don't know the details. If you ask this silly woman what a woman was, she'd dodge the question. And yet here she is trying to virtue signal about, you know, the rights of women. She won't tell you what a woman is.
They can, but I suppose about this broader conversation about violence and the language that people use is important, right?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think it is important that we...
So if the language that people use is important, why did they just mention the word violence? There's no accusation of violence here. There was no one bashed, no one stabbed, no one, anything like that. The only thing we've got in regards to sexual assault, there was inappropriate touching. We don't know what that inappropriate touching is. Someone said they got smacked on the bum. I mean, that's not violence. That's when you engage sexual workers, that's pretty common stuff. I mean, sorry. And I've never done it, but I've seen enough of it, heard enough about it. It's insane.
Continue to show respect to women and girls in all of the public language that we...
What women and girls, Tanya? Your government doesn't know what it is, and you allow trans women into girl spaces. Your government has no respect for women and girls. And let's talk about Kimberly Kitchens, could we?
But I think people can tell the difference between a podcast and a sexual assault.
For sure.
That's such a stupid thing. You can tell the difference between a podcast and a sexual assault. Well, on a podcast, unless you're in the same studio, and most podcasts aren't, you're on one place, they're in another. Well, there's no chance of sexual assault, is there? And again, she doesn't know the details. But notice how she's skipping accountability for her Prime Minister, who said derogatory things about another female. So she defends him, but she'll attack somebody else. She's a hypocrite.
More, I suppose, about this broader debate, though, about if we don't call out things, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment, I'm sure it is, to just laugh along is an easier response, isn't it? It's harder to do that, but we're encouraging men to speak up on our behalf as well. I would hope that people wouldn't say that about...
Most men do. And when they do, go to the family court. There's a lot of men who are kicked out of those relationships that would die for their family, but they're kicked out of that family. They're denied access to their kids, and a lot of that is by the woman that they would die for. So, I mean, this whole victimhood stuff is doing my head in.
Me, for example.
Yeah, I think wherever people can call out sexism, they should do it.
I find in your policy area today.
So this wasn't a case of sexism. The women who engage in this, these sexual workers, put down their own gender anyway. I mean, if they've got to resort to this to make a living, I mean, I can tell you now, if that was my daughter, I'd be sitting her down and having a good talk to her and saying, what are you doing with your life? And that's where you do need men with morals in there. It's been going on. I hope I've kept those tapes. Daisy. Let's have a listen to Daisy. So these are 3 women. We want to listen to all of them.
Young men who might be doing these sort of behavioural. You're such a revered leader in the men's and women's.
Is she? I would put $1,000 on it. Most AFL, a lot of AFL people don't even know who she is. She was a commentator. She's now head coach of the West Coast Eagles women's team. And good on her. She's had a good career. Well done. Not knocking that at all. But at first she said some good things. Let's hear her out.
Days, what message do you have to young men who might be doing these sort of behavioural things, which are awful?
Be a good human.
That I agree with. We all should be good humans.
Be a good human. And then for those that are in high-profile positions...
This part I don't agree with.
Understand that you being a good human matters, but it also has a massive impact on what other people think is acceptable. We
should be not putting AFL footballers, men or women, on that pedestal. They're young men or women. They should be enjoying their lives. They're not going out there to vote, to go into government. They're not a magistrate in a court of law. They don't hold high-profile corporate positions. They don't decide the way we live. They are there for entertainment, like the gladiators in the Colosseum. They're athletes that go out and do amazing things on the athletic field, but they are human beings that are flawed. They are not role models. The fact that we make them role models is flawed in itself. And I love my sport. I coach kids. I coach men. I coach junior athletes. I've coached women. I've coached girls. They're just human beings who want to play sport. That's all they are. And that's noble in itself. But your real role models are your parents, or should be. These days, they don't seem to be.
As well.
You're such a...
So... I agree with the first, but I don't agree with this role model bullshit. Sorry. If you're looking for a role model in an AFL footballer, you're going to be very disappointed. This one, my God, this one. Listen to this. It's a word salad.
We get into the football ramifications. Kate, you had some really strong statements to make at the start of the week.
Yeah, I just think the coverage of this issue sort of does welcome a conversation that people are maybe...
What conversation? Katie, what conversation does it welcome? You don't know all the details. When it first came out, no one knew any details, and we still don't know the details. So what conversation? And one you've imagined? All right, this will be interesting.
A little bit too afraid to have because of how...
Afraid to have what? I'd happily engage in it.
...sensitive it is, but the reality of this situation is there is an epidemic of violence against women in this country. There is.
Again, there is, and it's disgusting. And any man who engages in violence against a woman should face the full consequence of the law. But there also should be a study into why that is occurring. And I agree in many instances there should be a discussion about it, but let's not paint the woman to be totally victimless in this. There is a part in that. Domestic violence is inexcusable. Inexcusable. I despise men who commit into it. But can we look at the factors of why some men, not all, get into that position? What is it that's leading them to that position? Because, this is a societal thing. And a lot of these men who are in that haven't had the male mentors. Like when I grew up, and I said this yesterday in my silence, my father and my big brother would, when I got to the age, sorry, I'm going to interject this and get my ugly mug on the thing again. When I became of age, this is working much better today. Yesterday I did, the one thing I had a lot of connection timeouts. It's working so much better today. Maybe that had to do with my silence. I'm just going to double check it again. I'm a bit nervy about it. Yeah, it's still working, thank God. So when I was a younger kid, and a little bit of what Katie says there is correct. When I was a younger kid, and, I was getting to 16, 17, and I was going out to parties, starting to date girls, doing all that sort of thing as we did, Dad would warn me about how to treat women. My brother especially, my older brother, sat me down. He left me in no uncertain terms to not be inappropriate with women, which I never had the intention of doing. And I do remember sitting down a bit stunned going, what the hell's he giving? Well, I'm not going to do anything bad, but I copped it. I was made sure in no uncertain terms. So 2 strong male role models. They were my role models, not an AFL footballer. My dad and my bigger brother, who I just thought was everything. You know, there was 20 years between me and him, and he did everything that I wanted. He was a great sportsman, was married, happy, had 4 kids. I was 17. So he was like a generation ahead of me. He was like my second father, and he sat me down and gave me the talking to. So I had strong male role models that left me in no doubt what would happen if I did anything wrong. Do our young men have that around them now? And if they don't have that around them now, why not? Why not? So let's listen to the rest of this and hear what she's got to say. And importantly, let's hear whether there's pushback from the men on this panel.
1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence at some point in their life in Australia. And I think leading with a story like this and reporting to start with, and this is early hours.
Now, we got to be very careful with that stat. When you say 1 in 5 women, anyone can get data like a poll and make it suit an argument. When they say 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence, they bring this stat up a lot. The question you've got to ask is what constitutes sexual violence? Now, I haven't really looked into it. I've got better things, sorry, to do with my time. That might sound awful. Sorry, I've only got a certain amount of hours in my day, and I put a lot back into my community. But one thing I have heard is in those stats, you could be in a workplace and you tap someone, for example, on the butt, and that's constituted as sexual violence. Well, that's not violence. It's inappropriate touching, but it's not violence. So when they say 1 in 5, so where do they get those figures from? They ask women, have you experienced sexual violence? Now, a lot of women, I know someone close to me, female, who said she suffered child abuse at school. I thought that was a bit strange because I'd never heard about it and I'd grown up with her. And when I actually dug deeper into it, I found out it wasn't the child abuse that you normally associate with child abuse, right? So it really wasn't a case of child abuse. But if she was asked by one of these people collecting this data, she would straight away go, yeah, I was abused as a kid. So that would be tick in the data. So you've got to be very careful when they come up with these stats. Sometimes these stats are loaded.
Because of this breaking, some news outlets going with just the ramifications on the Sydney Swans as a football club.
That's because that's all they had. In the first day, we knew nothing about it, and obviously there was ramifications for the football club. That doesn't prove sexism. Obviously people were going to speak about that. They had 3 of their best players that were facing a suspension for God knows what. So, of course, the media were going to go with that. That doesn't indicate that there was no understanding of any females. It's just a ridiculous comment. And I hate this where people jump up and try and paint it as a victim thing. These were 3 consenting female adults that work in the sexual industry. They're not victims.
I think it opened a conversation to have around gender-based violence, which is an issue in our...
There was no violence. Why does it open up that conversation? Maybe rules about the sex worker trade, yeah, but what violence? They've jumped from one situation to another entirely different situation. There was so far we've heard nothing that amounts to anything like what she's saying. So why would we be having that conversation?
Country, it's an issue culturally, and I think widely we are seeing that there is an issue within AFL football with the treatment of women and the way...
All right, I'm going to tell you, with Daisy Herrera, I'll tell you the biggest issue in AFL football with the treatment of women is a week ago, she said nothing, Daisy said nothing, Tanya Plibersek said nothing when the AFL ruled that it was okay for a biological man to play in women's competition. You know, do you not think that man is not impacting some violence when he lays a tackle on another woman a shepherd, a bump, when he's physically so much stronger? She said nothing. She came out and said nothing. She's a hypocrite.
In which women are regarded in our game. And
you let men play in women's sport. You have no regard for them, what lady?
I think that's an important conversation to have in this. And I know it's not a comfortable conversation, but it's one that women are very tired of having.
This is now word salad. The AFL bends over backwards to get the AFLW. Sorry if I offend any ladies in it. It's not meant to. But if you were having the AFLW as a standalone competition, it would go out of business. It doesn't get the eyes. It doesn't get the watchers. People are more interested in the men's. That's fact. You don't have to like it, but that's fact. If I had a choice between watching a men's game and a women's game, I'm watching the men's game. It's just better brand of football, obviously. They're capable of more things. I could go down. Here's another fact. Sorry if this offends any women, but I'm sick of this women victimhood crap. This was a dual thing. They were all at fault if you're going to find fault. I would rather go down and watch my local men's game than watch the AFLW. Sorry. Now, that doesn't go across all sports. So I could watch the women's NBA all day, every day. It's fantastic stuff. I like watching the women's tennis. Fantastic stuff. I like watching women's golf from time to time. I'm not a big fan of golf. Don't even watch the men's golf. But I can watch it. I don't like watching the AFLW. It might get better. And if it does, and I'm watching it, and it's good standard, I watch it. Got nothing to do with gender. It's a standard of play. The women's cricket, I didn't like initially watching that, and I still don't like watching much of it. But there's some now that I do. It's actually improved. So the AFLW might improve, but it's current standard. I watched it the other night. I flicked it off after 10 minutes. It was horrible. All right, it's a horrible standard of footy. That's my opinion. But the AFL are bending over backwards to accommodate women's, even to the point they're allowing men's to play in women's sport. And you watch the hypocrisy that comes out when a biological man eventually plays AFLW. Because if they don't put in some rules to stop it, that's going to happen. And these people are at the same time now saying, well, you know, in the AFL, there's violence against women and blah, blah. A lot of nonsense. It's never been better for women in the AFL, ever. Let's get back to it.
And this opens the conversation for people that may not have thought of that, or it hasn't affected them, and now it has. And it's time to speak about these things, because if we don't speak about it, nothing changes. And this, I think, Tom, nothing against how you reported either, because...
Here she goes. Well, listen to this carefully. She's about to throw all the media organisations, except hers, under the bus. And she goes, nothing against you, Tom, but... this is interesting. She tries to make sure her Channel 7 colleagues don't get tainted with what she's about to say. Let's listen.
You're a journalist who's on the spot. You report what you can confirm. And I agree that at first you went with an incident because it was an incident to you.
Yeah.
There was nothing confirmed from that point. And I think then as soon as it came to light that it was more than that, you rephrased your wording.
Oh, so she gives Tom a little bail out there, but she's about to stick the boots into others.
I think once that had come to light, though, that needed to be reported by other outlets.
Other outlets, but Channel 7 are pure. Why? Because you're paid by Channel 7. This one is unbelievable.
What this was, not how is Sydney going to win the premiership? Because this.
Well, what was it? That's the problem with this whole debate. What was it? We don't know still. We don't know exactly what went down. How can you report on it? And far from be it from me to defend the media, but how could you report on it? We still don't know what it was.
This is not about that. There is so much more at play. And yes, we will get into the other ramifications of that from a footballing lens, but that conversation happening first was so much more important.
What conversation, you silly girl? She keeps talking about this conversation we need to have, but then she doesn't articulate what it should be. And when she does articulate it, she's talking about violence against women, which had nothing to do with this incident. There was no claim of violence against these women. None. Inappropriate touching, yes. Doing something they didn't agree to, yes. There's been no claim of violence against women.
How are we going to win the flag now?
Yeah, it's a point that's...
No one said that. In fact, the conversation was quite opposite. everyone was ruling Sydney out of winning the flag and how this was going to destroy their season. No one talked about how they were going to win the flag. In fact, there's conversations going on about kicking Sydney out of the finals. Why should all those other men in that team who've done nothing wrong be kicked out of the finals and lose their chance to win a premiership? This is where it gets over the top, and it's people like her in the media that make this over the top. And this relates to a whole bunch of other things, which I'll get into.
Well made, and has certainly sparked a lot of important conversations. I am, like the way we reported it on this show on Monday and then throughout the week, firstly and most importantly, acknowledging the alleged victims and the impact.
Oh, does my head in. The alleged victims. What victims, Nick? So Nick Riewoldt, this is an example, of a weak man. Fantastic footballer, but he cannot push back, or he's not allowed to push back by his employer, and they've got to go down this narrative of this victimhood stuff. This is why there's hundreds of women outside the court protesting against a woman who's killed 3 of her own children.
On them, and then to the specific allegations, we've spent a lot of time with lawyers on the phone.
There you go. They've spent a lot of time with lawyers. Who set up those lawyers? Channel 7 did.
This week, just diving into and understanding what we can and can't say about the specific issue, because there is, we sat on the call before, Kate, there are...
So how can you have a conversation then? Why don't you push back that, Nick? Why don't you say to Kate, we can't have those conversations. You damn well know we've been advised by lawyers. We've got to be very careful on what we say. Because if he says the wrong thing and these guys are proven guilty, Channel 7 is up for a shitload of money in defamation.
A lot of things that we can't say.
And it is a legal process that needs to play out.
Oh, it's legal now, Kate. It's legal. She's now acknowledging you can't have that conversation straight away. This conversation's bizarre.
And we do not want to say anything that jeopardises that legal process.
And then all of that.
But you want to have the conversation. Can't jeopardise anything that would jeopardise that legal process about something you know nothing about, but you want to have a conversation about it. She's already changed the tune. When people, and I don't agree with it, when people call women who are blonde dumb blondes, she's giving rise to why that happens. This is incredible.
For us, has to be balanced with, the fact that footy is a multi-billion-dollar industry and we are on a football show.
And there it is. Football's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So they're letting little things out here. They are protecting the brand because they're worried about the damage to the brand from this incident and how much money they might lose in corporate dollars, in attendance, all that thing that comes back. And because their show relies on that industry, they will say and do anything to make sure that brand is untouched. You just let it slip.
When we are discussing those secondary football ramifications, on football shows, we need to do that, and we have a responsibility to do that as respectfully as we can.
And I would encourage anyone that is judging a football show on what they're speaking about.
Here we go. So she's realised she's sort of thrown them under the bus, but anyone's judging a football show...
by watching the entire show, the clip that they...
I don't need to watch the entire show. I just need to watch this clip. And this clip proves the hypocrisy and the stupidity of some of these panellists.
See online, watch the entire show, because I think on most shows it was acknowledged that this is a serious issue to start with.
Hold on. So what's the conversation we need to have? She just said... most shows have acknowledged this was a serious issue to start with. So she's now arguing against the very point she was making at the start of this clip. Oh.
And acknowledging the alleged victims, and then moving on to other things that, yes, come when you're speaking on a football program. And to judge that in its entirety on a clip that maybe you saw online potentially isn't quite fair to the person that you are judging that on.
So what is the point she is trying to make? What is the point? Stop sharing it. I mean, she goes on. So there's 3 women full of hypocrisy. And look, like I said, I despise violence against women. If there was violence against these sexual workers, then those men in that room who committed that should go to jail. Well, that's what we need, strong law and order for a start, across a bunch of things. But this victimhood from the feminist brigade, who the same feminist brigade who, in the AFLW, there's a lot of lesbians. Good luck to them. They play it. But they're part of the LGBTQI community, the champion men in women's sports in women's change rooms all over the place, and they won't even define what a woman is. And now they expect us to champion womanhood after they won't define it. She wants to have a conversation. By the end of that clip, she's changing. Well, we've already had that conversation, and she was going down the road that most media panels didn't talk about the appropriate discussion at the start. But then at the end, she's saying, "Well, yes, they did." If you're not confused after watching that, you're going, "What the hell?" And that's just indicative of the pile-on. People writing nonsense and judging things before they know the full detail. And I feel like this week I've been shouting into empty space, though I know from the feeds and the comment there's plenty thinking like me. But there are also idiots that get back, oh, these guys should be suspended, they should lose their careers, Sydney should be kicked out of the finals. I'm a Richmond supporter. I don't think Sydney should be kicked out of the finals. 5 young men did a stupid thing. They've suffered the repercussions. So now you want to penalise the other 35? Can someone please make sense of that for me? So if you're innocent, you still get penalised? Is that what they're saying? I mean, the stupidity surrounding this is gobsmacking, and everyone like Nick Rewald on these panels aren't calling it out. They're not pushing back. Weak men make weak societies. Weak moral men make weak immoral societies. And that's a problem at the moment. Us men have been walked all over instead of standing up and mentoring some of these young men. These guys needed strong men around them so they wouldn't even contemplate doing what they did. Giving them the values, the morals, the integrity to go, oh, I'm not going to engage with a sexual worker. I want positive, fulfilling sexual relationships with the person that I love. I don't want to have to resort to buying sexual favors. I don't want to have to resort to taking a drug to give me a false high. And maybe, I'll tell you the difficult conversation we need to have is the AFL ever going to start making public the results of their drug tests? How many of these young men are actually on cocaine? I'll bet you that if we had the actual public revelations, we would be shocked. I would back it to be as high as 50%, maybe higher. Who knows? They're young men, a lot of time on their hands. They've got a lot of money, and they've got nefarious people that wander around them because, they're role models. Look at the rooms after a game, how packed they are. You ever notice that? Everyone looks at, they're all family and friends and how great this is. I see a lot of times there'll be a lot of these young men and there'll be 4 other men next to them. Do you think they do not have gang members in there for 1 second? Dusty Martin, an unbelievable footballer, but his dad was a gang member. There was another guy that played not long before him, can't remember his name, but he was involved in the gangs as well, as in having friends in there. Now, all you need is one person like that the gang member takes advantage of and said, hey, listen, are the boys looking for a high this week? Oh, yeah. Hey, chuck us some bucks. I'll get them all they need. And then they filter it out. So the AFL has really done nothing. They've got a code, they test, they do all that, but then they never public result. The clubs don't even know. If I was one of the clubs, I would be wanting to find out. Apparently there was bags of cocaine found in this room. And again, it's a rumour. And the AFL never drug tested these guys. That was reported by Tom Morris. The fact that we live in a society that young men still need a false high, that still need to buy sexual gratification instead of understanding what a fulfilling sexual relationship should be. That says to me, unlike me when I was growing up, and listen, there's plenty of that sort of stuff around too, but we had strong male, as I said, mentors in our lives that stopped doing it. Increasingly, these young men don't have that mentorship. Increasingly. So that's the thing. That's the uncomfortable conversation that's got to change. Instead of lecturing men and boys, understand the issues that face them. And just understand, she's talking about 1 in 5 domestic violence issues. How many young men commit suicide? How many men commit suicide every year? The numbers are frightening. So there's problems on all sides, not just one. Stop making men the perpetrators and stop making women always the victim. If you're a victim of violence, if you're a victim of crime, man or woman, you're a victim. Stop making it gender-based. That was the context of my conversation yesterday, so I've caught up now. Sorry, I've been sharing, obviously, which is good for me because I can have my coffee. But if just try and keep an open mind through this. These young men have paid, and the club has paid, an enormous penalty. You know, to be kicked out for a whole season, to have the world looking down upon them, frowning upon them, judging them, for doing maybe one thing that was illegal that we know of, is, sorry, to me, it's sickening. They're going to destroy these young men's lives and the people around them, their families and all that. Look at the media. I'll give you another example of how the media are disgraceful. They're a vile bunch. Yesterday, there was a young girl found dead after she'd gone missing. Apparently she got lost in the bush, and she was away 5 days, and whatever the circumstances around, a family lost a daughter, an 18-year-old daughter. Now, initially they were told that she was alive, and the family, they were bringing things of hers back to this state emergency service camp that had been out searching for us, and the message came through and it got confused. She was actually dead, but the message came through that she's alive. So naturally the family was celebrating. They were on a high. They'd found their daughter. She was coming home. And the media were there with them, and they were videoing all the celebrations and the drinks and all that. And they videoed it and they recorded it. And then about 15 minutes later, the message came through that it was correct, that she'd died. And this family was now devastated. Did the media show any concern for that family, or did they publish everything about it? They published it. They went to air with video of this family. I think it's one of the most vile media things I've done. We're talking about morals and ethics. If you had any morals and ethics, you would never have gone to air with that. You would have reported the story. We reported the mistake. But why publish and air such a distressing thing for that family that they'll have to live with for the rest of their lives? But the media went ahead and did it anyway. Ratings. Media are the most vile people. They misinform. They manipulate news. They'll do anything for a clip, a rating. They're more desperate now that social media is challenging them. If you want people that just watch the media and think, they're all be all and end all, you've got to get some sort of independent intelligence and start listening through this. And the same goes on social media. So you got to have an antenna for this sort of stuff. What's bullshit and what's not bullshit. You got to stop believing everything that's fed to you. People feed you narratives. And when you can be critical, like I cop flack because I'm critical of pretty much. I have an open mind, and whether you're left, you're right, women or men, whatever it is, you got to have an open mind to try and say, yeah, okay, I can back that. Or, okay, that's bullshit. You've really got to do. I used to be a big Tucker Carlson fan now. I think he's full of shit now. In fact, I think he's mentally ill. That's what I think. Same thing with Candace Owens. While they were around Charlie Kirk, I thought, yeah, these good people, but now they've been released from it. I think they're insane. They're insane because I know my history. I know my politics. I know my global politics. I've always taken an interest in it over my whole life. So I know all that stuff, but people get sucked in by things they don't know. I'm amazed that what Tucker Carlson can put out that is such bullshit, such lies, and yet people think it's the truth. They don't know history. They don't know facts. They don't know global politics, geopolitics, whatever you want to call it. They don't know local bloody politics, but they sit in judgment on it. So you got to have an antenna to it. All right. Anyway, I've rabbled it on enough. I've caught up on yesterday. I hope it's the last time. I don't think it will be. I think this whole Sydney Swan saga is just going to go on and on and on. But I do promise you Monday we will cover something else. Well, as much as I can, I'll promise it. If something comes out over the weekend, like, for example, if we found out that this was just a setup, well, obviously I'll talk about it. But I desperately want to talk about something else. But anyway, talking of something else, let's get into our... I don't think I need that. No comments coming through so far, so hopefully people who are watching can hear me, or maybe people have gone, have I got any? Yeah, I've got a +1. Hopefully that gets up more. I'll double check that my sound's coming through. Yep, it's coming through. Good. Much better than yesterday. I think it was the connection. I've got a nasty feeling it was the connection. Anyway, all right, let's finish off with our social media parts. It's always fun on the social media. Get back into our bookmarks. I think I'm in them. There we go. There's been some interesting stuff going on. And here's where I'm about to be critical. And some people, I think people must get a bit insane on me because people will agree with me on a lot and people won't agree with me a lot. So I'll give you one clip. This is Harvey. I'm very critical of Harvey at times. But this is where Harvey is at his best. And if you're Australia first, you'd hate this. Listen to this nonsense. So an international student. These are one of the people who let in the visas. This is a guy who's very pro CCP. He's taken accommodation. He's taken a university spot. He's wearing the Palestinian kafifa, if that's the way I pronounce it, and he's at the student protest. What right as a Chinese? If we did this in China, we'd be in jail. You know, and then he starts speaking the virtues. Just listen to this. It's galling. Well, what right's he got to come into our politics and protest our politicians? He's got no right. He's from China. Keep your nose out of it. It's got nothing to do with you, buddy. Go back to China and see if you can be that critical of President Xi and protest him. Go on, go do it. Listen to his answers here. How's that offensive? He's saying it's offensive to us that, but he's wearing the keffiyeh, which is for the Palestinians, which really he's signaling he supports Hamas. So I find that pretty offensive. There we go. He's dodging the question. So we can protest Pauline, who's a politician, but he won't make any comment on the Communist Party, and he tries to Communist Party of Australia. Notice these conversations ago. That's his security. That's the security. There's 3 security around Harvey. It's crazy that you need to go to a rally like this for security, isn't it? I thought the left were all about peace and loving and care. But if you're on the right, you need a big security detail. You don't have freedom of speech in communist China. He's trying to take our values, kidnap our values to justify him being there in his position. Good question, Harvey. That doesn't relate. How does it not relate? How not? Great question. What's he got to say? God's sakes, that's who we're letting into the country on a student visa. Insane. What have we got here next? I don't know why I've got this. This is all out of whack. Listen, this is interesting. Climate change. Listen to what this guy's got to say. This is gobsmacking. Just listen. Listen to this. We're broken into nation states. When people start talking about globalism and all that, this is where it's coming from, this climate change. They use this as the vehicle all the time. They tried it through COVID-19 as well. Listen to what this guy's got to say. We're going to be stuck with world government. He just said it because of climate change. The biggest hoax in human history, but they're pushing for world government. And this moron thinks that's what we should do because of someone saying that we're going to burn. That's exactly right. You don't hear this. He let it slip, and now he's got to backtrack and try and protect himself. He doesn't want it. Yes, he does. He just said he wants it, so now he's trying to backtrack. Unbelievable. Climate change is an existential threat to our species. These climate alarmists, they come up with these world-ending things. No, it's not. We've been hearing this since I was a kid, 40, 50 years. The world's going to come in. We've never lived in a time when there's been more people on the planet. It's not an existential threat at all. No, we'd be in a world of pain. So why are we doing this for? Neither do I. Absolute nonsense, but we're doing it all over the country at the moment. Australia's not going to do a thing to help it. So whenever you hear Chris Bowen, Malcolm Turnbull were out yesterday, the two of them, I should have saved that clip, two of the biggest clowns in Australian politics, that's what they want us to do. They want us to take those ridiculous measures that destroy our economy that won't solve a problem. Nonsense. What an idiot. People like him are exactly what the Marxists and all they want. They want to tear down society, and this guy gives them the vehicle to do it. Nuclear energy. We keep having this debate. No, when Katie talks about uncomfortable conversations, this is the one we need, and we need it big time, and we need to undemonize nuclear energy and have faith in innovation and invention that people can come up with cleaner forms of energy. Even in coal energy, they're coming up with heli power stations, high energy, low emissions power stations. Technology will solve this problem. Exactly. That's a great point, but they just go over it. That new technology has to be appealing to countries with high emissions. Of course it won't be. Engineers, oh my God. Some of the engineers I've dealt with are the biggest morons ever. Listen to what he's got to say about engineers. Let me guess, this guy's an engineer. Engineers running everything. That is amazing. That is amazing. So every time you hear Chris Bowen, just realise how much shit he is full of. It's incredible. Here's a really good clip. For those who hate Jews, you won't like it, but I thought it was really good. And in the context, what we're about to talk about, let's have a listen. That is, you don't know. If you're anti-Jew and you hate Israel, you can still appreciate that. That was a funny clip. I like that one. Someone should deliver that to Tucker Carlson, because that, if you watch Tucker Carlson, that's it. He blames the Jews for everything. But I thought that was pretty good. Let's see if I can find, there's another clip I wanted on here, not that one. I sort of just saved my clips onto thing. I'm trying to just go back a bit. Got a few good dog clips here. Where is it? Maybe I've saved it in the wrong bookmark. I'll go back to all bookmarks. There was one here, one guy talking about woke on a show, and I thought it was brilliant. Hope I've got it. Look at these dogs. If you want a wanker, this guy here, Americans, there's some good Americans, Mason Cox. Talking to football, this guy just pisses me off. He's a leftist. He's a liberal Democrat. Now, every time this idiot kicks a goal, he has to run at the guy on the mark and start jumper punching him. He does it every time. He's just such an idiot, and people should be upset with him. The sooner he goes back to America, the better. I never liked him at Collingwood. Don't like him at Freo. The guy's a wanker, and we just tolerate him on our screens. Well, I don't know many Aussie players that do this, so I don't know where the kids. And then watch this. What a wanker! And it's not the first time he's done it. If this dickhead was in a real fight, he'd go down in about 10 seconds. I agree. Yeah, he puts it at the top of the ladder. No, we don't criticise you because you're top of the ladder. We criticise you because you're a wanker. No one else in your Fremantle team does that. And if Fremantle endorse it, well, they should be shot. This is it. Listen to this guy, Mike. This is our last clip other than the dog clip for today. This is brilliant. Look at that. 100%. 100%. So was I. Seriously, here we go. Everyone goes to this. I'm so sick of hearing about it. That's part of the problem. Our parents were great people. If society could go back to the same values and morals that our parents had, Australia would be in a much better place. One 100%. Yep, absolutely it would. Exactly. Yep, that's fine. Yep, absolutely. 100%. God, he's covered that well. They talk about free speech, but if you express any issues that are against that anti-liberalism or liberalism, whatever you want to call it, the wokeness, you get labelled. Suffer that. Don't care. Throw the labels at me all you want. Let's have a bit of a look at. We got to get the puppies in. The puppies are great. Puppies and their mums. Let's finish off with the fun clip. Mama dog. Sorting them out. Aren't they cute? Oh! Pups are so good. I know. That's what we need. Bit of mentoring. Oh, cute babies. Gotta love mama dog. That's mentoring. Dogs are great. They are so good. Like I said, well, I don't know whether I think this is on the back end. If you're going through some tough times in life, my advice, go to church or get a dog. Come and say goodbye. Here he comes. Come on. Come and say goodbye. He's got a stretch. That's a Friday. Eh? He loves it. He's going, what are you talking so much for, Dad? I want to go OUT. Can't say that word out. So that's enough for me. Thank God I got my sound back. Hopefully this will come across better. We've covered off that subject. Like I said, hopefully by Monday, a lot of this Sydney Swan stuff is blown over. I doubt it will. But hopefully we got something else to discuss because I've discussed it for about 3 days straight. I'm surprised Sydney Swan supporters aren't making bigger deal out of this. But here I am, a Richmond supporter, standing up for your club and your players. This is a society thing, as that guy said. We've got to stop looking at each other as divided by gender and start realising there's issues, humanity issues, societal issues that impact us all, not just because we're a man and a woman, not because we're black and a white, just sensible moral values that we've got to get back to. And if we don't get back to it, and the key thing for young men and women is we've got to get them back into the traditional nuclear family, if we can do it as much as possible. We've got to make, and this was the problem when, in my view, when I fell for a lot of this bullshit from Malcolm Turnbull, with same-sex marriage, when we devalued traditional marriage. It was an attack on the traditional family unit, and I think we've been suffering for that ever since. We've given the activist in the LGBTQI community open rein. Most people in the LGBTQI community are reasonable people, but the activist group in that are insane. So that's why we've got biological men now playing in women's sports. Yet that doesn't seem to bother Katie or Daisy. Anyway, I could go on all day. I don't want to. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Me and JJ will chill out. We've got a busy weekend ahead of ourselves. We'll see you Monday morning, and let's see what we've got to chat about then. All right? See you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye for now.